Lesson 2.9, multiplying radical binomials. Go ahead and put today's date up here if you'd like. First thing we need to talk about is what happens when we multiply binomials, which means there's two terms times two terms. We have to FOIL. And FOIL is an acronym that stands for multiply the first terms, the outer, the inner, and then the last. It's just a nice order that it gets the terms to where the middle one should combine most of the time. Let's start with an example that you would have seen in Algebra 1. Okay, first terms would be this x times this x. That does not become a 2x because that's 1 times 1 is still 1, but x to the second power x squared is what it now becomes. Outers, x times a negative 7. So x is on the outside, negative 7 is on the outside. That would become negative 7x. Inners would be the two closest together. It's like a sandwich. The outers and the inners are in the middle. 2 times x is positive 2x. And then the last term are the terms that come last in the parentheses. So this positive 2 times this negative 7 would be negative 14. And see how we have these inner terms that can be put together. So we get x squared, negative 7x plus 2x combines to make negative 5x minus 14. That would be your answer. We are doing the same thing, but we're going to do them with radicals. Okay, so number 1, if I FOIL, I would have first times first, so 6 times 6 is 36. Outers, it goes 6 times a positive square root of 7. Well, that becomes 6 square roots of 7. Since 7's under the radical, 6 is not, you just put the number that's not in front of the radical. Inners would be negative square roots of 7 times 6. So that's a negative, like a negative 1 here, times 6, that's negative 6 square roots of 7. And then last, well, I have a negative times a positive, that would get me a negative. Square root of 7 times the square root of 7. Our property tells us that we can take 7 times 7 and say that's really the square root of 49. And maybe you'll see what's going to happen with that. Here's what's nice. In the middle, I get positive 6 square roots of 7 minus 6 square roots of 7. So 6 minus 6 would cancel out. So those outers and inner terms are gone. And then this square root of 49 is really just 7. So I'll have 36 minus 7, which is 29. Number 2 is the same setup. The only difference is you've got numbers all under radicals and nothing in front. Okay, so if you want to pause this one, you can try it on your own. First would be square root of 10 times a negative square roots of 7. So this would be a negative 1 times this is a 1 in front. So that's a negative square root of 70. And then outers. Oh, I didn't even do the right thing. Whoop, back up. I got ahead of myself. I should have done square root of 10. So square root of 10 times square root of 10 would be square root of 100. And it's not a negative. Outers would be a positive times a negative. That's a negative square root of 70. Inners, positive times a positive is positive square root of 70. And then last would be positive times a negative is negative. 7 times 7 square root of 49. Again, the middle terms can be put together because we are adding radicals that are both square roots of 70. One's a minus 1 square root of 70, one's a plus 1 square root of 70, they cancel out. Square root of 100 is actually just 10. Square root of 49 is actually just 7, but it's going to be minus 7. So that would become 3. Okay, so these are actually called conjugate binomials. Conjugate is when you have the opposite signs. Everything's the same though. So the factors are identical, except for one has a plus, one has a minus. And what will always happen is the outer and inner terms will cancel each other out because they're the exact same thing but different signs. Number 3 and 4, they are the identical binomials. So they are, you have your both signs being positive or both signs being negative. Okay? And so on this one, if I FOIL, 3 times 3 is 9. Outers would be a negative 3 square roots of 5. Inners would be a negative 3 square roots of 5. So their outer and inners match. And then last, negative times negative is a positive square root of 25. And so these don't cancel this time. They combine. Negative 3 minus 3 more would make negative 6 square roots of 5. This is really just 5, and that's 9. So I need to put my 9 plus 5 together. 9 plus 5 would be 14 minus 6 square roots of 5. And the last one of these, it's just written a different way. It has that this quantity is raised to the second power. What that means is it's 10 minus the square root of 3 times that again, 10 minus square root of 3. So see how it's just like a clone of itself. It's just duplicated. And then you would FOIL. So why don't you go ahead and pause and try number 4. You should have gotten 103 minus 20 square roots of 3. To make sure the middle didn't cancel out, became a negative 20 square roots of 3. You don't change what's under the radical. Square root of 9 is 3, and that's where I got the 103. Those are all level 1. Level 2 is not much different. The only difference really is that it's got a number maybe in front of a radical. So it's 2 square roots of 6. We haven't had that yet. Still foiling. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. Outers would be 1 times square root of 6. Square root of 6. Inners. Negative times negative is a positive. This is a 2 times this 5 is 10, and then the square root of 6 gets tagged on. So it's 2 times 5 is 10, square root of 6. And then last term, negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times the square root of 6 times 6 is square root of 36. Then I can combine these. So this is a 1 square root of 6 plus 10 square root of 6. That makes 11 square roots of 6. And then this is really negative 2 times 6. And negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. And then I'll combine my negative 5 minus 12 more would be negative 17 plus 11 square roots of 6. And then the last one, we've got the square root of 175, which is going to make a really big number when I multiply it with the 7. Let's just see if that comes out to be anything that's a good square. It's not terrible. I don't really like getting bigger numbers. So my suggestion is to go ahead and reduce this down, and then we won't have to worry about it. 175, what perfect square would that have in it? Wouldn't it be 25? And how many times does 25 go into 175? Well, it takes 4 to make 100 plus 3 more to make 75, so 7. And so really this becomes just a 5. Well, we have to take this 3 that was already in front times the 5. So really I've got 3 plus 3 times 5 is 15 square root of 7 times 4 minus 2 square roots of 7. So I like that a lot better. Why don't you pause it and try number 6. Final answer should be negative 198 plus 54 square roots of 7. So we got the 2 middle terms. You should add a negative 6 plus 60, which is 54 square roots of 7. And this would be negative 30 times just regular 7, which is negative 210. Negative 210 plus 12 is the negative 198.